Hey everybody, I want to talk to you about learning styles. And well, you'll see what I think about them in just a second. So, learning styles have been around for a long time, or the idea behind learning styles has been around for a long time. And I'll link to a Veritasium video. Was it Veritasium? I think it was Veritasium, about why learning styles are not necessarily to be trusted, which is a thing that a video I really liked, and what's prompting me to make this, because I want to add my own little 2 cents to it. So learning styles, as originally conceived in the, I think, late 1800s, early 1900s, something like that, were an idea by an educational researcher to help people learn by figuring out how they best take in, how each individual person best takes in information, right? And so the three that I remember off the top of my head are visual, audio learner or oral, and kinesthetic, right? So thing like you learn best by seeing things, by hearing things, by doing things, or by motion. That is basically entirely untrue as far as I can tell. Everybody. So here's the thing you really want to know about human beings is the vast majority of the sensory processing that we do is through your eyes. We have very developed sight, and there's a huge amount of your brain goes towards processing those images. So with this framework, with this incorrect framework, everybody thinks they're a visual learner, and they're not. It's just that they're a human being. Now, obviously, there's none of the things that I'm going to say here apply to people who can't see or can't hear or can't move around, right? Those people have very different brains, but they're not the majority of the people that I'm talking to right now. Everybody learns best by using every method. So anything that you learn just by seeing it is not going to be as good as learning by seeing it and also hearing it. And that's not going to be as good as seeing it and hearing it and doing other things. And your other senses matter too, not just, so kinesthetic would be proprioception. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's the idea that you can sense like where your body is even when you're not looking at it. Like if I told you to close your eyes and touch your nose, it's no problem, right? You can do that even though you can't see your nose. That is proprioception. And that's the sense that kinesthetic learning goes with. Interestingly, your other senses can be used to help you learn as well because they also forge connections. It's just that. So for instance, smell or taste. Humans have terrible senses of smell compared to other animals. Same thing for taste. And so we don't use much of our brain for that processing, but it actually does help. Like for instance, if you have the same smell around you every time when you are studying, it will actually help you retain the information better. If you have that smell around you when you're, for instance, taking a test. I think in my neuroscience video, I mentioned baking cookies, right? So if you have the same smell around you when you are taking in the information, it actually helps you bring it back out because your brain, that will help you construct the neural pathway necessary to find that information. Believe it or not, it's certainly not a foolproof way to learn, but it's like any little bit can help. So it's not just vision and hearing that you can learn with, or that can help you learn, but other things as well. So the key to learning well is to make as many connections as you can, both with your senses and also between other pieces of information. So this is why something like a story, where every stage is connected to the next one in a logical way, helps us learn. It's why pre-writing societies pass down their information that way, is because that is a thing that humans understand. We can make the connection from one step to the next. It's also the same reason why whenever I'm explaining a topic, right, like let's say we're doing a kind of problem, I don't just do the problem and say, oh, there you go, I'm done. I spend most of my time explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing and then kind of do it sort of quick. Because the idea of why you go from one step to the next is the key thing that helps you learn, right? That chain of events helps you learn. It's not the fact that you're seeing it and hearing it, or that you're seeing it because you're a visual learner, or that you're hearing it because you're an audio learner. No, everyone's both. Everyone is all the types of learner at the same time. And the way you learn the best is to use as many of them as possible, even if you are best when you see things. Now, that's not to say that you don't want to use a lot of visual learning, because like I said, you're a human being, you're going to take in information very well through your eyes. That's why I spend so much time drawing pictures and graphs, because I'm trying to explain an esoteric, amorphous concept like probability, right? How likely is it that if I go outside today, it's going to rain? I don't know. You can't, all you can tell is it is or it isn't, right? You don't have a good sense of the probability there. That's why we need things like probability density functions and graphs and areas in the graph to be a visual aid to understanding that complicated concept. It's also why I draw pictures all the time. I guess you guys have never actually seen me in class, but when I'm in class, I draw everything with a picture and I think in graphs, and like I try to do that deliberately because that helps me process information. That visual medium makes it easier for me to understand the world around me, right? If I can turn a complicated concept into a relatively simple picture, that makes it easier. So with this in mind, take in information in a variety of ways. Try to use the same sensory information or the same sensory, what am I looking for here? Miasma? That's not the word. Environment, that's the word I want. Same sensory environment when you are taking in information as well as when you are trying to repeat it, i.e. a test. And, I lost my train of thought entirely anyway. Oh yes, and draw pictures of everything. Like when you see a problem, so let me make an example for you. So let's say you're doing a continuous distributions problem, and I tell you to, I say that the sampling distribution of X is approximately normally distributed with a mean of 10 and a standard deviation of 3. Find the probability that 3 is less than X is less than 7, right? So when I ask you to do a problem like that, that is very esoteric information. There's jargon all over the place. Everything's written in shorthand. It's so hard to understand unless you're well-versed in statistics, then it's relatively easy. But until you get all of that, until you look at this and go like, oh, I know exactly what to do here, it's so helpful to draw things. Because drawing them, one, provides you a visual aid to help motivate your reasoning, and two, forces you to think about that visual aid while you are drawing it. And that forcing you to think about it is part of the neural pathway that will get you to the information that you want. So for instance, I would say, okay, I'm going to see that distribution, I'm going to draw it. Zoop. And so this is a normal distribution with a mean of 10 and a standard deviation of 3. Now I'm going to say I'm going to find the probability that X is between 3 and 7. Well, here I'm using the spatial representation of the number line to focus on a particular portion of the probability distribution, right? So 3 is going to be way over here, and then 7 is going to be like there, right? And so then I want to find the probability. Probability is area, so I shade this in, and everything seems so straightforward because I provided myself a visual medium in which to do the work rather than trying to think about it all in terms of symbols. So use visual mediums if you can. So for instance, a thing that often helps, this right here, oral and audio, talking to yourself helps you because it's the visual, or it's the audio equivalent of drawing a picture, right? You have to say what you mean, and then you can hear what you said. I don't know if you've ever had that experience before, but sometimes you'll say something that you know is true because it's a fact that's in your brain, but you don't say it very often. And then when you hear it, you literally go, oh, wait a minute, that's obvious. Like, clearly this is what I mean. So let me give you an example of this. On one of the homeworks, homework 6, I think, I asked a question about, it was a trick question. I think it was 1E, something like that, where you're at a stoplight and the stoplight is 90 seconds long. And question E asks, if you arrive at the stoplight in the second half of the red light, what is the probability that you'll have to wait at least 60 seconds, or you'll have to wait more than 60 seconds, something like that? And the answer is 0, right? It's clearly, if you arrive in the last half of the light, there's only 45 more seconds left to wait. And so you're never going to have to wait at least 60 seconds. So it's a little bit of a trick. And when I say it like that, it sounds very easy. But when you see it on paper, I had a bunch of students come to me stuck on this problem because they're like, I don't, it seems like this doesn't make sense. Or they've got some answer like, oh, it's the probability that X is greater than 60. It's not. And so just talking it out really was enough, right? And so that's the audio equivalent of drawing a picture is saying what's going on. And once you say it, it's easy, right? Every student I helped with that problem said the same thing of, oh, that's it. Or some variant of, oh yeah, that seems really simple. Even though they had come to me stuck on it less than 5 minutes ago, right? And so putting another problem into terms that you can understand, either with words or with pictures, is often a really good way to solve the problem. This is why writing a problem in your own words is helpful, because it's effectively doing that thing that I just said. You're talking it out with yourself. So, tips for you. Learning styles don't really exist. Yes, some people will take in information a little bit more efficiently with their eyes or their ears or some other way. None of that matters, because no matter how visual a learner you are, you will still benefit from hearing something or taking some action with that thing, right? Doing some physical action, doing kinesthetic learning, regardless of how visually oriented you are. If you are more visually oriented, then sure, slant yourself towards more graphs. Yeah, that can't hurt. If that's a way that you particularly well understand information, absolutely, lean on that. But don't lean on only that, because you'll hurt yourself in the long run. You're always going to do better by having more connections, even if they're not the strongest connections. The audio connections will reinforce the visual ones. And then actually use those methods. If you are a visual learner, draw pictures all the time, like every single problem. Anytime you have even the slightest doubt about a problem, draw a picture. It helps. If you're an audio learner, talk everything out. Feel free to literally talk to yourself. It actually helps. So yeah, so do that. If you are a kinesthetic learner, and for instance, if you've played sports a lot, you probably have pretty good kinesthetic learning ability. Do some active thing while you are trying to solve problems. Like, I know it sounds silly, but get up and walk around while you're thinking. It actually helps, because you are doing some physical action that will train your brain to think or that will trigger different thoughts in your brain. Anyway, that's really what I want to say about learning styles. They don't exist, or the original conception of learning styles is not right. But you can use the ideas behind them to still help you by using all of them all the time, as often as you can. That's really what I want to say about learning styles. All right. I think I'm done there. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. I will see you guys in the next video.